The South African culture and creative industry is one of the sectors that will be hardest hit by the coronavirus, mainly because it thrives on social proximity, not social distance. Many of us know of one or other event or activity that has been postponed or cancelled. Museums and art galleries are closed, fashion shows cancelled, television productions moved or cancelled. According to the South African Cultural Observatory mapping study, the industry employs just under 750,000 people, both cultural and non-cultural workers. It is these workers that will bear the brunt of the pandemic. For more on the story, we're joined now via Skype by the Executive Director of the South African Cultural Observatory, Unathi Lutshaba. A very good morning to you, Unathi. Before we get to talk about the survey, who is the South African Cultural Observatory?
Good morning, Desiree, and good morning to the viewers. The South African Cultural Observatory was established in 2015 under the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, Mzansi Golden Economy Strategy. It is a research project aimed at the cultural and creative industries in the country that's trying to understand the economic impact of the creative industries in the country, how the sector contributes to the country's growth and development, how many jobs it creates, and most importantly, how it contributes to the country's GDP. So it is a project that's hosted by the Nelson Mandela University in partnership with 3 other universities: Rhodes University, University of KwaZulu-Natal, and the University of Fort Hare.
So tell us about the survey. What were the findings?
Okay, so we don't have findings yet, Desiree. We launched the survey only last week on Friday.
Oh, I see.
The reason we wanted to do the survey is because a major part rather of how the sector thrives is through social proximity. And with the coronavirus, it encourages social distancing because we all know that the virus moves when people move. So we wanted to understand the economic impact of the COVID-19 on the creative industries, because just like all the other sectors in the country, the sector has been largely hit. The sector employs just under 750,000 people countrywide. So to an extent, a large extent, people's incomes will be affected, especially because I think before the lockdown, we announced an economic recession in the country. So at that time as well, the sector started to feel the impact in terms of what they can actually make out from the sector, because then it meant that people's disposable income have been minimized, so they cannot consume as much of what they usually do in the creative sector with limited income. So the reason we then decided, let's do a survey, we're trying to understand how the sector has been hit by COVID-19. And perhaps we'll not fully understand it now, but we will only understand the impact long after the carnage. So we're trying to understand, in the meantime, how are people affected who are working in the creative industries.
So who will be participating, and why do you think the sector is one of the hardest hit?
Okay, so how we define creative industries, firstly in the country, we're using the UNESCO framework for cultural statistics, and it defines the creative sector using 6 cultural domains. That's your audiovisual and interactive media. That's where you get your film sector, your visual arts and crafts, your books and press, your design and creative industries, and your cultural and heritage, where your museums are. So we're looking at everyone who is active within those cultural domains, but in particular, we're trying to focus the aim of our survey on businesses, both formal and informal, and people who are freelancers in the sector.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us. We hope to speak to you when there is some sort of response, I suppose, in terms of what the outcomes are. Unathi Lutshaba there speaking to us about the impacts of COVID-19 on the cultural creative space. Of course, that is a conversation that we'll continue to have about the different impacts on different parts of society. We were asking you a question this morning on the show, how the lockdown has affected your family relations now that you're spending a lot of time in such proximity with family members who you ordinarily would only be seeing at certain parts of the day.